Release the Kraken!
Good morning, Hockey Nation. This is your Detroit Red Wings update. We had a live broadcast last night with Coach Frenchie with the Montreal Canadiens playing the Detroit Red Wings. These are kind of the two teams that we've built this channel on, in addition to other content. But if you are here watching this, you are probably a Detroit Red Wings fan, and that's why I am here to talk to you about the 5-0 win last night against the Montreal Canadiens. Did you get to see the live broadcast by Coach Frenchie? I wasn't able to join. I forgot that, as usual, I have an insane calendar. And we're just preparing for a draft in the WHL of U.S.-born players, so that's always fun. The question is, the Red Wings thumped the Canadiens as Ville Husso's return from injury. I was actually kind of surprised to see that. I'm like, why don't they just shut him down for the rest of the year? Maybe it wasn't that serious of an injury. He gets in, and he was happy to be back because he got a shutout. And that's great. Good morning, Steve G. It's great if the Red Wings are winning and there's some reason to win. But right now, winning is costing them in the NHL draft. They're just getting farther and farther away from the draft lottery. And I guess that's okay. Like they're not tanking. That's obvious. But a lot of their teams are kind of shutting it down. You can see they're just not playing their best hockey. And the Red Wings are approaching the games properly with great habits, but it's like fighting a guy with one arm tied behind his back. Like, this is kind of crazy. Some teams, these games are important, and that's the case for the upcoming game with Buffalo, and we saw that against Pittsburgh. So those games are important to those teams, and it gives the Red Wings the opportunity to play spoiler. But, you thump the Canadiens 5-0, and all it does is helps them in the standings to bomb for Connor Bedard. I don't know if that's the right term, and if YouTube gets upset at the word B-O-B-M-P, we're not making it's just like that means tank to get a better draft position. Well, that's not what the Red Wings are doing, and we're seeing that. Vancouver similarly just continues to truck on. So revealing this. Red Wings winning 2-0 after the first, and that's all they really needed. That boiled down to, you can just see in this game. I know a lot of you Montreal Canadiens fans were saying, hey, I think the Red Wings are going to thump the Canadiens. That's what happened. Jeez, Ville Husso returns, gets a shutout. He faces 24 shots. The Red Wings only had to block 6. So it's just such an interesting statistic. 30 shot attempts. 59-41 in the faceoff circle, a power play goal. This feels like a hollow victory. Good morning, RJ Calabro. Thank you for joining. We really appreciate it. Good morning to Steve G. Appreciate you in the morning. How are you feeling about your Avs? They seem to be in a pretty solid position heading into the playoffs. How about those Edmonton Oilers in the West? Edmonton, if you go back, was my prediction to win the Stanley Cup. Some of it was based upon them making the third round. Some of it is based upon, I could tell at the beginning of the year, Connor McDavid is on a mission to lead the NHL. I said this, he's going to win everything. Did I not say this? If you go back and look at our preseason predictions, I said he's going to win the Rocket Richard Trophy. That's happening. He's going to win the Hart Trophy. That's happening. He's going to win, is it Art Ross still? Art Ross Trophy is the NHL leading scorer. That's happening. And he wants to win a Stanley Cup. He wants to be the first guy to get 2 points a game in decades, and he's really, really, really close to that. I don't think he'll hit it. That would take a monumental monster game or two here. He's only got like 4 or 5 games left. Perron did have himself a good game, and he's been playing pretty well of late. And he always plays pretty consistent. Sometimes he disappears offensively a little bit, but you can see, he's still such a good player out there. And he's racking up a few points at the end of the season, and that's fine. Avs finally in first place in the Central. So that's interesting, right? Like, this is the Stanley Cup champion. Let's not forget it. And you know who's playing great is Bo Byram. I love Bo Byram, and everybody should go back. I love Bo Byram. I've always loved Bo Byram. I've always predicted Bo Byram was as good as Cale Makar. And you might think I'm crazy, but there's 2 years or 3 years difference between these guys. And if you look at his production and the number of games played at the same age as Cale Makar, and he's ahead of him. And he don't look now, he's got like 10 goals on the year. And he missed a bunch of games due to injury. The only thing holding Bo Byram back is injury. So I love Bo Byram. Are they still playing without Gabriel Landeskog? Will Gabriel Landeskog be back for the playoffs? I don't know the answer to that. We can look at that. Let's just wrap this up. You guys saw this game. Shutout for Ville Husso in his return. Overall, this has been a great, great pickup for the Red Wings. The only thing left for me to root for the season, the Penguins missing the playoffs. There's a lot of, but don't you want to see Edmonton in the playoffs? Because I really do. I'm a big Edmonton Oilers fan, always have been, and I think that Kenny Holland made some great moves, particularly with Ekholm. Go back to the gamble on Evander Kane, and he's been really, really good for them. And he's stuck with guys like Yamamoto, who plays an effective role. He can move up and down the lineup. I really love Philip Broberg. I kept saying this is a really top-notch defenseman. He is. And Stuart Skinner's really come around as a goalie. And Jack Campbell doesn't have to be number one. Don't be surprised if he's ready for the playoffs. But maybe he's just coming for emotional support. I don't know. He is the team captain and leader on that team next to, well, they got a bunch of leaders, but he is the team captain. So that's a good thing. Yeah, and these are all good things for the Avs. So Lucas Raymond getting his 17th of the season, so that's good news. He's going to fall. We should look at Lucas Raymond too, last year to this year. I kind of said, I think he's going to start a little slower and he'll finish strong. And I think the problem last year was he was all world, and you could see what's going to happen with this guy. He's got such a high skill level. He's clicking well with Berggren. Apparently Berggren and Veleno are buddies off the ice, so that's good news. Berggren is such a high skill player. This is the new Zetterberg and Datsuk combo for the future. Except I don't think either one will end up playing center. Berggren's a natural center. Raymond's always been wing, but Berggren's shown he can play wing. He's a smaller guy, and I don't know if he'll ever move to center. I really like Michael Rasmussen at center, and you have Dylan Larkin at center. And if you have a third line with Veleno or a Kopp briefly, then that's a pretty good 1-2-3. And you can see this team without Rasmussen really struggled for a long time. Good morning to Cody. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Please hit the likes and subscribes. Those are how we get payment from you guys. And as Coach always says, and I heard another channel, it's called the Gentleman's Agreement, but it's like the Gentle Ladies Agreement too. I don't know. How does that work? So 1-0 after the, at 4:55 in the first, 2-0 from David Perron. That was his second point of the game. Olli Mata getting his 16th assist. So that was good news for him. He's been a good pickup. Real solid 5'6" defenseman. Can play 4. He's a good defenseman. This has been real good. He's had some inconsistency since leaving Pittsburgh, and he's been very good for the Red Wings. So a really smart pickup by Stevie Yzerman. Inexpensive, and he's signed for a little bit of term here now. Matt Luft, who's been playing up, he came up before and played real well and then got injured. And he went back to the AHL and kind of recovered. And now he's back up. And you can see this is a guy that's got a lot of NHL games under his belt, getting his second goal of the year. Berggren getting his 12th assist. That's all good. Joe Veleno getting his 9th. Maybe he can get 10 this year. That would be great progress for Joe Veleno. So that would be great. Jake Wallman been a great pickup. He has more goals than assists. Am I missing that? I think he does. And then Kubalik is 25th assist on the power play. Those are good news. And then Perron finishes it off his second goal of the game, making this a 3-point game for him. He's had not many, but he's definitely had multiple point games. That's what I figured. I don't know if that's a salary thing or his injury is obviously legitimate, but you're gonna you see these other weird rumors like, does Erik Karlsson go to the Leafs? Can that happen? Can the Leafs make a trade? I don't know if that's possible. I have to look into that. Seems weird to me. I realize San Jose will be out and is able to make moves, but I thought they could only make moves to other non-playoff teams or eliminated teams. They are money-saving tactics. Does this happen with Mark Stone in Vegas? The NHL is very much like a copycat league in a lot of ways. People see moves that they're like, oh, I didn't think you could do that, or that really worked. You see it on power plays. People copy each other's power plays. You see it, there's not a lot of secrets in the NHL. You see off-ice moves like this where the Tampa Bay Lightning hide, an injured Kucherov into the playoffs. It solves a salary cap issue. And then the NHL GMs all get together and scream and yell at each other about all these problems, and they change the rules. You saw that with the draft rules after Connor McDavid got picked, and Edmonton had 12 billion first overall picks. Great game by Kadri. That is good. Not. Yeah, I don't know. Did they lose last night? I thought they'd lost. We'll have to check into that. So just to wrap this up, Luciano, and then I want to look at a couple of things that we talked about here. Good game for Ville Husso. Never bad getting a shutout. Simon Edmondson, 17 minutes playing in the second pairing. That's pretty good. You love that pairing with him and Seider. Ben Sherratt logging 20 minutes last night. Jake Wallman logging 20 minutes, and then 22 minutes for Seider. So things are pretty good on the defense at the moment. Great game for our friend David Perron playing the Montreal Canadiens. French-Canadian players always get pumped up. Does he? I don't think so. Kadri's played very well everywhere he's played, but he's also a nut job. Right? He can be erratic. He's a second line center, which is good, but he can also, and he hits a little bit, but he can also do stupid things, and then he can also make mistakes. He's just got that wild card element to his game, and he always has. And it was finally when he tamed it that the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, and that was really important to them because he really hurt his playoff teams. Yeah, he's got an erratic nature to him a little bit, right? He's not perfect, but he's highly skilled and he hits. And he's an emotional player, and that's probably why he's a little bit erratic. He's not like a robot. He's creative. He's got skill. He's not a young guy, but he always seems like a young guy because he's got this wild element to him. So to wrap it up, Mata getting his second assist, Osterley getting his second assist of the game, and that would be all she wrote. So you look in the standings, the Red Wings are now 6th here in the wild card. That doesn't help you. You've got Washington now, who's dropped and better position to maybe get into a wild card, or not a wild card, a lottery spot. He did and he didn't. You say that he had one great year. Go back, and there was a lot of people calling for his head, just like they were in Toronto. He's an erratic player. And that's why, the best thing for the Avs would be if you have a young Alex Newhook maturing into a second-line center. And I don't know if that's, if they're ready for that. Landeskog can play center. He's actually pretty effective in the face-off circle, but he's better on the wing because he's better at puck pursuit and pressure as opposed to handling it and playmaking, right? So I think Kadri has that ability to make plays, but, he's still a wild card. He's erratic. It's like if you had Jonathan Drouin with less eccentricities but not zero, that's Kadri. And he's way tougher. He's willing to hit guys. He'll do things though that hurt people, and that hurts his team because he takes stupid penalties. He'll cough up the puck at erratic times, and then he'll score crazy goals. So he's all over the map. He's just an erratic piece. So interesting. Ottawa at 81 points, Buffalo at 81 points, but Pittsburgh is 87 and the Islanders have 87. And how the heck did this happen? 4 wins in a row for Florida, who I wrote off. I mean, this should be a team that's firmly in hand. On paper, they're like so much better than these other teams. They might go on a 4-game losing streak now. They're just all over the map. But on paper, this team should be much better. Now, 87 points is okay. That should be a 97-point team. Like, there's just like, I just don't love the way they play defensively, and it costs them in games, and it's difficult to be a goaltender there. The Islanders, not a done deal yet here then. You look like they were really firmly in place, and suddenly they pitched 2 losses. Pittsburgh looks a little bit lost, right? But they're within 1 point. So this is like a 3-horse race at this point. Now, 2 games in hand for Buffalo. So again, the next game for the Red Wings and Buffalo Sabres is very important for Buffalo. They got 2 games, played 2 fewer games in Ottawa and Pittsburgh and the Islanders in Florida. So if you even that out, that would put them, let's say they get 2 wins. That's what they need. And that puts them at 85. Right? Then that means 4 games left, and it comes down to those last 4 games. So they really need to put themselves in a position where they go out and they beat Detroit and they win the game after. So let's take a look at that. But I think in the end, seems pretty locked up the way it is. We know who's playing who as far as Toronto and Tampa. Waiting to see who Boston will play. Waiting to see who Carolina will play. Does that mean New Jersey, New York Rangers for the first round? I don't know how that shakes out. We got to look at that. I always get confused by this. Next up, Buffalo not helping themselves. I just think they're too erratic, but maybe they'll win. They lost their last one. Do they go with Devin Levy? That'll be interesting. The Red Wings 5-5-0, but they've won 2 games here, 5-2 and 5-0. I don't know. 2 games above 500 for the Red Wings, 5 games above 500 for Buffalo. Who does Buffalo go with in net? Do they go back to Nedeljkovic in Detroit? I just think you shut Husso down at this point. Like, why do you care? Why are you risking injury? Or maybe he just wants to get some games in because it's the last chance to play. But last thing he needs is got to blow a kneecap or something, and it screws him for next year. So Perron, 9 points his last 5 games. That's another multiple point game last night. Alex Tuch, who is the same age as Jack Eichel, and definitely outscoring them. So he was traded along with Peyton Krebs and a first pick. That's kind of worked out. Kevin Adams is a much better GM than I gave him credit for. That's a great rebuilding move. Like, that's crazy. He saw something, and they got a great coach in Buffalo. And Casey Middlestad, 7 points in his last 5 games. Don't look now. I think he's got a 50-point season. So Granato's reformed some of these guys like Tage Thompson and Casey Middlestad. He's gotten the most out of Alex Tuch. A great season from Jeff Skinner, not Stuart Center. Stuart Skinner's had a great season, but Jeff Skinner has a 35-goal season. And Dylan Cousins has matured into a point-a-game centerman on the second line. Wow. No matter what, this is a great year for Buffalo. And they got a bright future. Dahlin's played great. A great rookie season for Owen Power. I mean, if he's not in the consideration for rookie of the year, I'll be shocked. There's some other good rookies for sure. So this is a real important game. Thursday night, Detroit versus Buffalo. We will check in with you on Friday morning to see how that shakes out. On Saturday, we have Pittsburgh, which is also an important game for Pittsburgh. You mentioned they look tired. Don't count them out. They still have a lot of weapons. Really a good year for Sid and really a good year for Malkin. Their defense is always weird to me. So there's always that. And if they get any consistent goaltending from, even Tristan Jarry, I'm having a hard time understanding this Renault too. Like, I think it depends on the offseason moves. If we look at the lineup and the roster and what's coming up for the Red Wings, is this enough to make them a playoff team, like a playoff contender? And we've seen, I think, if you look at last year's record, I'm not sure if it's a major difference to this year's record, but they've worked in Berger and they've worked in Veleno. Rasmussen was really going. SLATER had a little bit of a dip at the beginning of the year when he was separated from Ben Sherrod. His season turned around. You've got Simon Edmondson playing some games in the NHL. You've got Marco Kasper playing games in the NHL. So there's hope there. You got William Wallander still turning into an excellent prospect. And then what do they pick up in the draft? Nothing that they pick up in the draft at 11th or 12th, in my opinion, is going to impact this lineup immediately. They're playing themselves well out of a lottery pick at this point with these 2 wins. Like they were tanking. It was like, yeah, that's good. They're getting themselves into lottery consideration. All of a sudden they go on this little bit of a winning streak. Doesn't help. If you compare what the alternative was, I think this is probably the best thing for them. They have to exercise their demons against that team. But that is not a good matchup. Now, I think its differentiating factors are Ryan O'Reilly is a big acquisition. Don't underestimate Janmark. Don't underestimate the acquisition of Lafferty. These third and fourth line guys are playing very well. They move on from Pierre Engvall. Toronto's a little bit different heading into the playoffs. Will they play a different style? They're going to try to run Tampa out of the building. You're not going to try to match up physically with Tampa. I don't think that's going to work. But the Tampa third line can be a real pain in the neck. Their defensive depth can be a real pain in the neck. And they got the best goalie in the world probably in Vasilevsky. He's top 2 or 3. Maybe probably number 1. So that's a problem. You're going to pitch Samsonov or Murray or Kallgren against them? That's a problem. Hedman if he's healthy, is a problem. Whew. Yeah, let's take a look at a couple of things, though. I think this is one of them. Oilers win last night and move ahead of the LA Kings. Don't look now. Victor Arvidsson, 25 goals in the season, but Ryan Nugent-Hopkins gets his 36th goal, his 63rd assist. 99 points. This will be his first 100-point season. He needs one more to hit that. I did not see that coming. Draisaitl got his 50th goal the other night with 3 goals. This is an excellent, excellent team, guys, and they're peaking. 123 points for Leon Draisaitl. Can play center, can play wing. He plays heavy. He's a great playmaker. He's a great shooter. This is a superstar player. Is he the second best player in the NHL? I think so. He's had 2 110-point seasons now. He's had now 3 50-goal seasons. Do you believe? I believe. Let's not pretend that this is not a superstar player. And you say, yes, he plays with Connor McDavid. That's true. Who has 147 points, by the way. So 3 more points, that puts him at 150. I kind of thought he was shooting for 160. I don't think he's going to get 13 points in 4 games, but you never know. He might think that, and he might do it. But I think he's really focused on the playoffs, and I think that's what they've been all along. Have they won 10 games in a row now? I think they might have. They have 101 points. They're only behind Vegas at 104. They go ahead in the head-to-head match. That win brings them at 101 to LA Kings 100 points. This is a group where Seattle was firmly in hand, and they've fallen, but they've done enough at the beginning of the year to stay in playoff contention. They had a big win the other night. You're going to have 3 100-point players, guys. Did you ever think you'd see Zach Hyman get 34 goals? This is the guy that Austin Matthews complained about to Mike Babcock. I don't want to play with him. He's not skilled enough. He's not good enough. Why am I playing with Zach Hyman? Okay. Zach Hyman goes to Edmonton. He shows he's a point-a-game plus player. Does the gritty-nitty stuff around the net. 80 points on the year. And then you look at this depth. They had the freak wrist injury for Evander Kane. He's working himself back 15 goals in 37 games. Darnell Nurse, 43 points, plus 21. You love that. They move on from Tyson Barrie, and they bring in another tower of a defenseman. 36 points. And he's improved his skating. He's a much better skater than I thought. I thought he was always a heavy-footed skater. And then Warren Foegele's worked out really well. Kyler Yamamoto playing in a third and fourth line role for the most part. We know he can flex up. He's a small player, but he's played well in a third and fourth line role. You're getting 11 goals in 55 games from a young Ryan McLeod. Matthias Janmark, I think, don't underestimate this pickup. This was a real good pickup. And I get him confused with the player that Toronto picked up, but we'll look at him. But the real key here has been Matthias Ekholm. What an acquisition. He rounds out the top 3 defensemen in this team very, very nicely. Nurse, Bouchard, and Ekholm. And I love Broberg. I think Broberg's just going to get better. He picks up Nick Bukestad. Vincent Desharnais is a good news story for the Edmonton Oilers. A lot of things lining up that, like, this is a big player here. 6'3", 10 goals, 19 points, picked up from St. Louis. Brett Kulak is a number 4, number 5 defenseman. I really like him. Desharnais is a monster. Is he 6'7"? He's big and he plays mean and he can do a lot of different things. He's a good defensive defenseman. They've even put him on wing a little bit and they can put him in front of the net and he's kind of an effective deterrent, but they don't generally need him there. And a great year from Stuart Skinner. 284 save percentage, played 47 games, relegated Jack Campbell to a backup role. The big contract to Jack Campbell. But they're not worried about that. I think that if Stuart Skinner's your guy going into the playoffs, that's who you run with. That's a real good year. No matter what. This team, you got to love that team. I love that team, and I think that they're going to do some damage there. I agree. I think it's they still have lots of depth. Braden Point, is he going to get a 50-goal season? It kind of looks like it. Let's take a look where he's at in that race. He's got 2 more to go. Mikko Rantanen, 49 goals, guys. This guy's a superstar. Tage Thompson, I don't know if he can pull out 6 more, but either way, 44 goals is nothing to sneeze at. But Mikko Rantanen should get 1 more, make it 50, cap a really, really good year in which he held down the fort when there was no McKinnon, there was no Landeskog. And if they throw Landeskog in there, you got to hope that he's ready to help come playoffs. I agree. He is so good. This is a great player. You can rely upon him as a coach. He's strong on the puck. He protects the puck really well. He wins battles. He's just everything. Sam Reinhart drafted ahead of him. Aaron Ekblad drafted ahead of him. I was shocked when he fell to Edmonton in that draft. Don't know who this is. McKinnon has 100 points in 65 games. This is not talked about enough, Steve G. He missed a bunch of games, and he is on a tear. Do not count out Colorado. 100 points in 65 games. Injured early on. Rantanen held down the fort. No Landeskog. Look at this machine. 7 points in his last 5, and that is his normal clip. He still hits 100 points. This is one of the great, great players. We don't talk enough about how great he is. It looked like for a few years he wasn't going to turn this great. He turned great. Yeah, and I don't know who Cole McWard is. I'll have to look it up. Got to be honest. So just to finish this off on Edmonton, if you look at the standings in the West, they're in second in the Pacific, 3 points back of Vegas. They've won 5 games in a row. They are 9-0-1 their last 10. And I think if we look, they've just been sprinting to the playoffs, and they're focused on the playoffs. But this is not going to be an easy playoff for them, obviously. Calgary last night, Couple turnovers we were talking about from our friend, and they blow a game to Chicago. Oh my God. Teams in the wild card do not help themselves, but that shows you the parity in this league. Tyler Toffoli, great season, 34 goals playing under Daryl Sutter again, his former coach with the LA Kings. Things weren't always rosy for him in LA under Daryl Sutter, but he's had a lot of success there. Andreas Athanasiou, 18 goals on the season, and this guy Reichel is a real good player for Chicago. Athanasiou, 33 points, 76 games, carving out a little bit of a career here for himself. Still not a perfect player by any means. Does some stuff that drives you nuts. Peter Mrazek, 917 save percentage for Chicago last night. What? Markstrom once again. I don't know. But yes, the turnovers by Kadri can kill you. And if you thought that Kadri was a 90-point player, you were incorrect. And I said this at the beginning of the year, guys. Again, if we go back, we find those episodes where we make predictions. I said, this guy is not a 90-point player. And I don't get tricked. He had 87 points last year. He falls back to the mean of 55 a year. That's what it is. He is what he is. In Colorado, he had 36 from 32 and then suddenly 87. He was motivated after being the heel, after being blamed for their early playoff exits, and he stayed the course. He almost had a problem in the playoffs, but not quite like the previous years in Colorado and Toronto, where he seemed to sabotage himself with stupid play. But he is a turnover machine. He's a minus 18. The other guy who is just, and I think I might have predicted this too. We have to go back. I'm trying to think of, I wish we wrote these down. How many points did I predict for our friend Jonathan Huberdeau? Because it was not 90 or 100, and the guy scoffed at me. 53 points. I don't know if I thought it was that bad. I thought he'd be like a 60, 70, like a 70-point guy versus 115. Like, who's he passing to that can score in Calgary? There's nobody. Is he playing on a line with Toffoli? Like, he's on the other wing. Just not going to work. He was playing with a world center sometimes in Barkov. I don't know. Those numbers compared to what you gave up in a Keith Tkachuk. Tkachuk gets his 39th of the season from Montour, who's had a monster year, and Lundell. On paper, this team should just be wrecking people. You got Carter Verhaeghe. How many goals does he have? 30? 40? Jeez. Craziness. 4-goal game in the game against Columbus for Carter Verhaeghe. On paper, this Florida team should be not an 87-point team. That should be at least 97 points. We know they have problems in net with, Alex Lyon coming in with a big game for them, stopping 39 of 40 shots. What? Devin Levy, 944 save percentage. Again, Buffalo shocks me. I thought this guy's going to be a backup for at least a year or two, or in the AHL. Nope. NCAA, again, right to the NHL for this. Acquired from Florida Panthers. So this is interesting. In the Sam Reinhart deal, they get Devin Levy, and he's already contributing. He's had 2 NHL games, 198 save goals against average, and 940 save percentage. No matter what, you've got to be happy with this. He's like 5'11", 6 foot, maybe 6 foot. It's questionable. Peyton Krebs also coming over on another trade, the Jack Eichel trade. Look at all these moves. Good moves overall. But not enough to get them in the playoffs. And clearly, Florida won that deal with Tkachuk. Yes, Weegar went back to Calgary. Yes, Huberdeau went back. It was the best of a bad situation. Yes, they grabbed Kadri. But this doesn't all add up to Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk. And Johnny Gaudreau's had a real good year on a real bad team in Columbus. He's had a very good year. He's like point a game. But Calgary not helping themselves in this race. Nashville helping themselves a little bit, but I think they're out of it. Carolina keeps winning. No Svechnikov, but they keep winning. That's a bad loss for Ottawa. Ottawa needed more than a point last night. And I was going to say, so who is the other guy I was mentioning? I always get this confused. I get these two players. Yarn Krok has 19 goals for the Toronto Maple Leafs, 37 points. This was a great bottom six pickup and a career year for him in Toronto. And he's a real good defensive player. That's a tough loss for a team, or a big win, but a tough loss. You would like to see, if you're Calgary, him have worked out there. Worked out in Toronto. Sam Lafferty's working out in Toronto. Jake McCabe's working out in Toronto. Zach Aston Reese is working out in Toronto. Is this enough in the playoffs? You don't like the matchups in net. And you got to say the grizzled veteran status of Tampa is always going to be an X factor. They came real close to finishing the deal last year. Can they get by Tampa this year? That, honestly, is the only question remaining in Toronto land. They also picked up Noel Acciari. These things will all help them in the playoffs. Agreed. I don't know. Wall in that. Jeez. Are you going to go Wall against Vasilevsky? Or are you going to go Samsonov against Vasilevsky? Those are the things that decide playoff series. Well, Buffalo and New Jersey have tons of talent, but can they piece it together? New Jersey looks very ahead of Buffalo at this point. New Jersey has this X factor of Andre Palat. Jack Hughes is a star. They picked up Timo Meier. That's a very different team to Buffalo, in my opinion. They got not Freddie Hamilton. What's the other brother? Going back to GTHL. Dougie Hamilton on D. That's turned out very well. New Jersey is real good. They were just looking for some consistent goaltending. Who do they go to? Another Washington Capital cast-off. I never understood. You let go of two young goalies in Vanacek and Samsonov, and you go Kemper and Lindgren, and they're not in the playoffs. Washington is not in the playoffs. You know who's in the playoffs? Samsonov, Vanacek, and by a wide margin, and they both have good numbers. I mean, you would think so. I mean, he seems to be top 2 or 3 at that age group. The exceptional status, I believe, right, in Quebec? Maritimer. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. So we have upcoming next game, Detroit versus Buffalo. Jesper Bratt, exactly. Sharon Govich. These are all good news stories. Don't look now, but sophomore slump for Dawson Mercer, not. 27 or 28 goals. Did he get his 28th goal or his 30th last night? Let's just double check. I saw this in that New Jersey game. 5-1 win versus Pittsburgh. Dawson Mercer. Holy moly. 27th goal, got a hat trick. Timo Meier getting his 38th goal this season. The move to move Ty Smith to pick up John Marino has been amazing. Ty Smith not even in the lineup for Pittsburgh, and they lose a John Marino who has been just a stalwart, excellent defenseman. Marino, Hamilton, Severson, what do they have in common? These are big defensemen. Ryan Graves, big defenseman. Jonas Siegenthaler. Kevin Ball's a monster. A .957 save percentage last night for Vanacek. He's one of the top 5 goalies, I think, in the NHL in stats. And listen to these names. Heeshire, career year. Nathan Bastian, real good. Andre Palat, healthy in time for the playoffs. We know he's a big-time playoff performer. Mike McLeod carving a little bit of a role in this team. Miles Wood continuing to contribute this year. Eric Hollow has been a great pickup for them. But Jesper Bratt, 69 points, 31 goals, 78 games, never takes a shift off. Highly, highly skilled, great energy. Last year was not a fluke. He had 26 goals, 73 points. Now he's a plus 13, 69 points in 78 games. That's a real good player. He can play wing. He can play either wing, but he's mainly a left winger. You got Miles Woods getting back in. Healthy season for him, which is important. 11 goals, 24 assists in, or 24 points in a supporting role. Lots of good news stories. And Jack Hughes, let's not forget. How good is Jack Hughes? He is everything you want from a first overall draft pick. Jack Hughes, 40 goals, 51 assists, 91 points. That is nothing to sneeze at. You have the second coming of Patrick Kane there. And that's what he looked like in the remind me of, and he's so good. Except he plays center, which is surprising me. I thought he would have a hard time playing center in the NHL. 1-2 Hughes and Heeshire. That is crazy. And then you got Timo Meier who can play center. Timo Meier can play wing, and he can really score. Lots of weapons there. Sharon Govich, highly, highly traded. Young goalies complain about facing Ovechkin's shot in practice, so they ask for trades. I don't know about that. I mean, you think that he ruined them in Washington, or he's like taking bombs at them? Well, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining this morning. It was a nice win for Detroit. I thought we were going to finish the year without any of those wins, and actually was looking forward to that. I'm not even going to bother running the Tankathon because at this point, they're not in the lottery. We know they're not changing spots, and that's not good. Really isn't. But you got to be happy. And I think there was a question, I danced around it. I don't know if Detroit has enough to get in the playoffs. I think it really depends on what moves Stevie Yzerman is able to make in the offseason. He needs a number 2 goalie. He needs a 1A, 1B scenario. Ville Husso is really good. We see that. But he needs someone to take a lot of games off his plate. He played a lot of back-to-backs this year. And I think he's a 45-game type guy, ideally. He's been 2 years in a row where he's had injuries when he got late in the season. So to me, that says you need someone else that can take it. Nedeljkovic making a bit of a run here, but again, they're meaningless games. So I think really look for a big goalie to come in, take off some of the workload. Who can he steal? Who can he find? And then, the defense looks really pretty good. Even though we lost Philip Hronek, Simon Edmondson is ready for the NHL. And as long as he doesn't regress over the summer and keeps progressing, got to be really happy about Edmondson and Sider as your 1-2. Big guy, suddenly able to play decent defensively, willing to play physical, can pinch up in the play, elite skater, exciting. We have this game tomorrow. Yes, RJ Calabro, Buffalo, and Detroit. An important game for Buffalo, but I just don't think they're going to get any escape velocity. Devin Levy making a case to stay next year as the number 1. He looks really good. If your number 1 center is Dylan Larkin, your number 2 center is Michael Rasmussen, and your number 3 center is either Kopp or Veleno, is that enough? When you're matching these guys up against top teams, do you get enough horsepower out of them? I think, you're looking for Jonathan Berggren to keep progressing. He's just got so much skill. Just stay in the lineup. Lucas Raymond, can he get bigger numbers next year? Marco Kasper, what does he contribute? I tend to think it's on the third line. Eventually, he's capable of being a second-line player. That seems obvious. But they need something. They need something else. It's not going to be a David Perron that gets you in the playoffs. It's not going to be a Kubalik. They need someone that can come in and be a 30, 40 goal guy that they can really count on. They need an elite center, I think. So you're going to have to make some tough choices there. Or does Michael Rasmussen become that? And I think those are all question marks that question in the draft. There's like 4 or 5 guys that are interchangeable, and everyone has a different opinion who the top guy is. The U.S. development guy is pretty good. There's a Swedish guy that's really good. There's a Russian guy, which is risky. There's some CHLers that are really good. I don't think there's a consensus guy that's like, Sebastian Cossa and Wallstedt were probably the best examples of like, hey, these are really high-end guys. Askarov looks like he's ready for the NHL. That's worked out. He's still always going to be a little bit erratic, but I think he needed to get over to North America like he did and have really good goaltending coach and a more structured game on regular ice, not big ice. So those are 3 elite goalies. There's going to be other guys that will pop up out of it. Cossa needs to take another step next year and play in the AHL, but that's positive for the future, but I don't think he's going to help them next year. Maybe. Guys have surprised us. Detroit does a real good job of developing people. All right, let's wrap this up. So I don't know. if they're ready for the playoffs next year, it may take one more year. And it's going to take an aggressive move in the offseason. That's what I think it boils down to. Maybe there's a lot of space. Maybe Stevie Yzerman can relieve some salary. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining. Please hit likes and subscribes. Tell your mom and everyone else to join us in the future. We will see you on Friday morning, and we will look to see the results of the Buffalo Red Wings game, and we will preview the Detroit-Pittsburgh game on Saturday. See you later.